are now going to turn to the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, where JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon was making a key address. Our Arise business anchor, Rotus Odiri, is here with us and has more details on the summit's developments. Good to have you back here on Newsday, Rotus.
Hey, it is good to be back. Hello,
it's been a minute.
Hello,
where you been? Been seeing you on Twitter.
yeah, exactly.
Good
to be with you. Yeah, you know, social media. That's where all the news and everything is happening. Well, of course, after Arise News. The summit. Pretty big deal. JP Morgan, of course, just to put things into context, I mean, this is the largest bank in the world. In fact, on, I think it was Friday, they released their third quarter earnings, just to let people know how big this bank is. It was, so they got about $4 trillion in assets. $4 trillion. Revenues were up about 6% to $43 billion, right? So their revenues are bigger than our nation's foreign reserves, right? Mm-hmm. Profits were about 12.9%. I think revenues were up 6%, profits were down 6%. Revenues were up down 2%, or up 6%. Profit after tax of 12 billion was down 2% year on year, but the stock still jumped about 5%. So Jamie Dimon, he's been at the helm for about 20 plus years. This is a pretty big deal for the Nigerian Economic Summit Group to have him there in that fireside chat and talk. You heard him there. He was talking about technology, the balance between regulation and innovation, the importance of Africa to the rest of the world, and also the importance that banking plays in terms of linking people through financial access to the wider economy. So it was a pretty good chat.
Yeah, but I love the emphasis on financial inclusivity. But having said that and putting that next to what's happening across the African continent, what do you think is bringing this incredibly celebrated man to the African continent? And what does JP Morgan Chase look like on the African continent moving forward, sort of based on his body language?
Yeah. So I mean, look, they're already in 100 countries. They've been in Nigeria now. They're in Nigeria and South Africa. So they provide wealth management, asset management, investment banking services, but it's on a limited scale. They act as a liaison between them here and then the primary offices in New York and so on and so forth. But Jamie Dimon did. I mean, our reporting from about a month ago was that there is a plan for an expansion across Africa. In fact, just on Monday, the Central Bank of Kenya approved them to open an office there. There's been some back and forth in terms of regulations and so on and so forth, but they were just approved. So he's going to Kenya. So he's here in Nigeria. He's going to South Africa, he's going to Kenya, and he's going to the Ivory Coast. So it is part of a wider expansion of their footprint across the continent, because as you just heard him there talking about Nigeria and the potential of Nigeria and the size of the population and the potential, what you can get from banking more people, financial inclusion, there is a lot of potential on the continent. So he's keen. The bank has targeted these, of course, Nigeria. Well, we're no longer the largest economy in Africa, but Nigeria being a major country here, so is Kenya, because of, Kenya is number one in terms of financial inclusion, the Ivory Coast, South Africa, and so on. South Africa being the most industrialized country on the African continent. So it's very strategic for them to expand across the continent.
Implications for Nigeria, then, therefore?
Yeah, the implications are huge. I understand that he might be speaking with the president. In fact, that might be happening while he's here. And so there is, of course, you heard him there talking about the need to bring capital and create jobs on the continent, right? So him specifically referring to Nigeria and saying that there's a lot of potential here. With the bank, if you look at a bank that, what happens when let's make this as simple as possible. What happens when a major company comes into a country and expands its operations? It hires people. It gets offices and so on and so forth, and then provides services. So there's the possibility of taxes being paid to government. There's the addition of jobs, and more importantly, there's also the capital and the money it brings in. Don't forget, there's the very important the JP Morgan Bond Index. I mean, we had some issues with our FX a few years back where it kicked off, but the JP Morgan Bond Index is an index that looks at emerging markets. If you are on that index, foreign investors it gives foreign investors a view to a particular country. So him being here in Nigeria brings a lot of attention to the country, potentially brings in a lot of capital, jobs, and so on and so forth. I mean, this again is the largest bank in the world, so it's a pretty big deal for him to be here. Yeah.
I love that he spoke a little bit about leadership, and he spoke about analytics, facts, details, analysis, and he's saying all you have to do is repeat that, analyze, self-assessment, and honest self-assessment as well. Now, given those principles and sort of the state of the economy, state of the nation at the moment, and what an expansion of JP Morgan Chase would look like, and what a green light from them could potentially mean for this economy as well. Do you think this is going to be good for headlines for Nigeria, or do you think they would give a positive assessment of where we are right now as a nation?
So look, I mean, I think this morning, it's already been reported that the World Bank, for instance, has given a thumbs up to Olayemi Cardoso, saying that's of course the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, saying that he has been on the right path with respect to monetary policy. We got inflation figures yesterday. So I think after 2 straight months of deceleration, we saw year-on-year inflation, I think, climbing to 32.7%. I think food inflation is at 37.77. So we did see an uptick. And remember, I was debating it. I thought that the Monetary Policy Committee would hold at their last meeting 3 weeks ago, where they hiked rates. But Cardoso, because of his eye on inflation, I said, look, we need to stay on this hawkish path. So within context to your question, the monetary policy and to some extent the fiscal authorities are trying to right the ship. So I know the fuel thing, the removal of subsidies has been controversial, but when you look at the finances of Nigeria, that was a necessary move that had to be made because there wasn't enough money to continue paying for that. When you look at the liberalizing the exchange rates, that had to be done. Nigeria has now cleared its FX backlogs under the leadership of Cardoso. So when you clear FX backlogs and you give more transparency to your foreign exchange structure, when you make bold, but tough decisions to remove fuel subsidies, it shows that you are liberalizing a downstream sector. Let me give you an example of that. There was a new listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange on Monday, Aradel Holdings PLC. Aradel Holdings PLC is a full-fledged oil and gas company. They're an upstream, midstream, and downstream. I was there at the NGX for the facts behind the figures. And so let me give you an indication of what it means when you make policy reforms that attract investment. I asked the CEO about his take on what's been happening on the downstream sector. And this is what he said. Aradel, as far as the downstream sector is concerned, does not sell PMS. Why don't they sell PMS? Because it's regulated and they can't make profits from that. They sell diesel because diesel is unregulated. So they're able to sell it and make profit, but they don't sell PMS. So with the government liberalizing PMS, liberalizing the downstream. You saw the Ministry of Finance notes that they released last Friday where they said that any oil marketer can go to the Dangote refinery or any refinery and purchase. Now you're opening up the profit margins for a player in the downstream sector. So if you're an Aradel or whoever and you now want to sell PMS in Nigeria, you expand your operations. You expand, you hire more people. So that in of itself has a gain when you look at what the country could get in terms of increased sales, profits, taxes, and so on and so forth. So bringing that back to a JP Morgan that says, okay, look, Nigeria is on the right path in terms of fiscal and monetary policy path. That is a green light to an analyst in Germany or an analyst in Nairobi or everywhere else or Stockholm, wherever, saying, okay, look, JP Morgan is in Nigeria. There must be something there. Let's follow that path. Yeah.
A lot of interesting things in the
It's
pipeline.
all happening.
Cautiously
It's all
optimistic.
happening.
It's great. Cautiously optimistic. So
Yes, indeed.
Anything else you want to leave us with, Rotus?
Well, I think, look,
take you out
next
of
week
studio?
is the IMF. Jamie Dimon actually referenced that the IMF World Bank annual meetings. So, we're going to be there covering that. So there's going to be a whole look at the global economy, what's happening. You're seeing what's happening with oil. So the conversation continues, right, in terms of everything that's happening at the global stage and here on the African continent. So, hey, we just tell everyone to stay tuned to Arise News. Keep the hot gist going.
There you have
Rotus,
it.
crunching those numbers even though you're on leave. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for popping in.
Yeah.
Now please go
I'm
back
going
to
back- I'm going
restaurant
back to-
hunting
I'm going
and
back to
journals.
Head on out.
Thank you so much, Rotus
Thank you.
Odiri.